Good morning. Hi, Rick. Hi, everyone. So good to see you. So good to be here. Do you remember a time when your one voice made a difference? When my friend Sarah was a little girl, she was 4 years old and her older brother was 8, he came to visit her at day camp. On that special day, every child was going to get to ride a horse. They were all in the corral together when Sarah noticed that the counselor had forgotten about her brother. She already knew at 4 that her older brother wouldn't speak up for himself. So she went over to the counselor and whispered in her ear that her brother hadn't had a chance to ride a horse yet. Then she raced back across the corral to hide behind the stables and cry. Tears her brother would never dare cry, and her own tears of relief and release. Now, Sarah gave me permission to share this story with you this morning, adding, the message, "Who do you think you are?" was clearly drummed into me by the time I was 4 years old. I also think I knew my brother would be completely humiliated if he saw that I was speaking up for him. And I can say that at 76 years old, I am just now getting to thinking that I can stand up for what I believe in public, without castigating myself for speaking up. Therefore, my question for y'all this morning, who do you think you are? And who did other people, maybe your parents, your grandparents, your pastors, or your teachers, tell you you were supposed to be? Because if you knew her, I'm positive you would find it hard to believe that Sarah ever struggled or struggles to speak up for herself. Retired now, Sarah was a tenured professor of gender and media studies, and before that, she was an award-winning filmmaker and editor. She intimidates people easily with or without her red oversized glasses. And she's not ashamed to say that she pursued success and the power and influence it gave her. Sarah is without a doubt a powerful woman. Still, I believe her story. And her story inspired me to think more deeply about when and why we do or don't feel empowered, especially in the world today when we've broken through so many barriers to empowerment and when our country badly needs us to speak up and share our message of love beyond belief, like Marie in our story this morning. So what voices in your head inhibit you? Of course, there's the classic, power corrupts and absolute power corrupts absolutely. With liberals and progressives in particular, power gets a bad rap, you could say, precisely because we have a proud history of speaking truth to power and holding those in power accountable. Good things, don't get me wrong. It also might explain why some on the left are still a little uncomfortable with Vice President Harris. A few weeks ago on the Ezra Klein podcast, which if you don't know about, I highly recommend, Klein commented how Harris, unlike most liberals, isn't offended by or resistant to power. You might remember the story she told at the Democratic National Convention about how she became a prosecutor to protect people like her childhood friend who was being sexually abused by her own father. As a young woman, future President Harris, future Vice President Harris first sought power to protect and defend her values and to seek justice for people like her friend who had suffered harm at the hand of others. It takes power to stop the abuse of power. Even as Sarah, at age 4, used the power of her heart and her words to make sure her brother was included. It turns out power isn't inherently evil. Power is simply inherent. Power isn't inherently evil. It is simply inherent. So I spend my Friday mornings these days with my 2.5-year-old granddaughter. so I know whereof I speak. I don't want you anymore, Joey tells me when she's not getting her way. And with her mom the other day, she came out with, "Stop trying to control me, Mom." 2.5. Just because we don't feel or can't see the power we wield doesn't mean we don't have it. The philosopher Friedrich Nietzsche said the drive for power is the primary drive in human existence. Alfred Adler, an influential psychiatrist of the early 20th century, said, when we feel inferior, it activates our drive for control and power. Tara Brach, teacher of compassion and mindfulness in the Buddhist tradition today, says, our predilection for power and control is universal, explaining that because we all have a need for safety, and safety often comes from having control and power, it's only by acknowledging our own control strategies and then not identifying with them that we can begin to shift from the old paradigm of power over and under to the paradigm of power with and within. Turns out there are constructive, spiritual, and even liberating ways of perceiving and relating to power. Phew, big relief for me. And so many opportunities follow from this new understanding. When our drive for power is conscious instead of subconscious and controlling us, we can shift from seeking power to true empowerment. We can recognize that power is infinite, expanding when it is shared with others, rather than finite, a resource we have to hoard. So, who do you think you are? And who do you think you're not? Do you think of yourself as a person with power, or not so much? In your personal life, in your political life, in your life at work, or here at All Souls? The definition of power I'm using today is from the Reverend Dr. Martin Luther King Jr., who said, power is, it's very simple, the ability to achieve one's purpose and affect change. Which is, interestingly enough, exactly what pouvoir, the word for power in French, literally means, the ability to make something happen. Speaking of achieving one's purpose, some of you may know that I'm passionate about community, and now that I live in Oregon, I'm living in a co-housing community. Reverend Kathy gave me permission after the service at 10 o'clock to share this story. There's a new co-housing community here in Tulsa too, so when Reverend Kathy and I were talking about it a few years ago, she said, I considered it, but decided no, it's too much like church. And Kathy has a good point. We have lots of meetings because we have to govern ourselves. We have to figure out who decides about pretty much everything, from pets to parenting to participation and on. Makes sense then, you can imagine some of the disagreements, that we encourage learning nonviolent or compassionate communication as taught and championed for many decades by Marshall Rosenberg. The more directly we can connect our feelings to our needs, he writes, the easier it is for others to respond compassionately, which we all want. Because when we don't know how to directly and clearly express what we need, we can only make analyses of others that sound like criticism to them. And wars are never far away, whether verbal, psychological, or physical. I've got to confess, when I read that, I felt like he had nailed me to the wall. In his lifetime, Rosenberg was trying to teach people all around the world how to directly and clearly and successfully express or ask for what we need so that we would not need to resort to violence. It's a lot to take in. I'm going to give you an example. Rosenberg talks about a time he was invited to work with some high school students who had a long list of grievances against their principal and who were convinced their principal was racist. After listening to the students describe the discrimination they were experiencing and then supporting the students to identify their feelings and their needs, Rosenberg recommended they clarify what they wanted from the principal. What good would that do? They said, disgusted. We already went to him, and he told us to get out of his office, saying, I don't need you people telling me what to do. Ouch. Undeterred, Rosenberg asked them more questions. The students explained they had told the principal that they didn't want him telling them how to wear their hair, etc. Having heard their feelings, a few examples of feelings, hurt, disgusted, angry, and their needs, a couple of examples, respect, autonomy, universal needs, and their strategy that they'd already used, Rosenberg coached the students to ask for what they did want, not what they didn't want. And he recommended using concrete, positive action language. Still skeptical, the students came up with a list of 38 actions they wanted the principal to take, including, we'd like you to agree to Black student representation on decisions about dress code. We'd like you to refer to us as Black students, not you people. Cringe. That evening, Rosenberg received an elated phone call from the students because the principal had agreed to all 38 requests. It's often incredibly difficult for me to dig deep down inside myself past my hurt or my anger, my resentment, my protective self-isolation to identify what my need actually is. And it is always worth it when I do, whether my need is for connection or consideration or compassion or support or something else. Because once I've identified it, I can ask clearly and directly for what I need and get it. Talk about empowering. Turns out, sometimes we can get what we want. And there's a song about that, I think. Mr. Fortner, do you know that song? Pastor Smith, have you?
I think I do.
Have you heard that song?
I think I have.
How's it go? How's it go? How's it go? Do you remember?
Is this thing on? Yes. You can't always get what you want. Come on, Bethany. You can't always get what you want.
Wait. Hold on. Woo!
The
Don't
power.
ever doubt that God is present in all souls. I don't care if this is the humanist hour.
The power.
The power, that's right. It was the power. Okay, thank you for stopping. That's the wrong lyrics. This is the wrong lyrics, man. We need new lyrics.
Some new lyrics.
It's a new time. This is 2024. How about you can sometimes get what you...
You can sometimes get what you want. Come on.
Come on.
You can sometimes get
What you want.
You can sometimes get what you want.
I can't hear you. And
If you try,
sometimes,
You just might. You
just might find
What do you say?
you get what you need.
There you go.
Woo.
Woo.
Thank you. Getting what you want matters a lot at this moment in history because, I'm going to tell you why, because so many of you, maybe all of you, are power with and within and not power over under kinds of people. You are people who value mutual trust and respect, who value transparency, equity, and inclusion, who value critical, evidence-based thinking and justice for all. Like Marie, you know that love is powerful beyond belief. And I really want you to get what you want. So, my question this morning for you is, what's holding you back from being fully empowered? At our social justice revival here yesterday, many resonated with Marie in our story today, sharing her initial concern that their actions wouldn't be seen or heard or even make a difference. Someone or some experience in their lives influenced who they think they are and who they think they're not. Recently, back in Hood River, where I live now, in a nonviolent, compassionate communication circle where we practice together, Sandy, who also gave me permission to share this story this morning, shared that many years ago, when she was still a teacher in California, she had lost her temper with her children in her classroom more than once. We had been discussing the difference between punitive and protective force or power. Protective force being, for example, grabbing a child before they run into traffic, versus a punitive force, which might be making a child feel ashamed or afraid instead of teaching them a different way or a better way. As Sandy tearfully shared her remorse, I was completely surprised that this kind, thoughtful, and generous woman was still carrying her pain about ways she had used her power over children in the classroom many years ago. And that her shame was still preventing her from feeling confident and at ease with the kids in our community, and sometimes even with her own grandchildren. Who do you think you are? Amen, Andrew. You know who you're not. Do you know who you are? To be continued. When I served, I'll tell you my story, Andrew. When I served this congregation, Reverend Marlin used to talk about BP's armies of volunteers. He said, my superpower was my ability to inspire people to step up and into positions of power within the congregation and beyond our walls in the city of Tulsa. Very nice to hear that from Reverend Marlin. But with time, I realized that my superpower comes, as it does for all superheroes, not from a natural strength, but from one of my core weaknesses, my insecurity. I suspect I have enjoyed encouraging others and been successful encouraging others to step into their full power, partly because I've long resisted doing so myself. I long resented and resisted the reality that being alive means navigating and negotiating power. That's what held me back. What's holding you back? What if, like Sandy, some of you are hesitating to say yes because of guilt or even shame you feel about ways you have misused or even abused your power in the past? Some of you may have been told long ago by someone close to you, someone wielding power over you, who in the world do you think you are? Way back when, you probably didn't answer, I'm someone who's figuring out what to do with the power I have. But I hope you'll consider that as your answer if and when you get asked that question again. I'm someone who's figuring out what to do with the power I have. Remember that definition of power from the Reverend Dr. Martin Luther King Jr.? Power is the ability to achieve one's purpose and affect change. Well, I think All Souls is an optimal place, I am so serious, to achieve one's purpose and affect change. My life is a testimony to that. And this mandate to become more fully empowered, more fully yourself, more fully self-realized is not just a call to be a social justice warrior in a world on fire, though it is. It is the deepest spiritual call of all. Because there's only one thing the world is really calling you to, and that is to become more fully yourself. Which is why before his death, Rabbi Zusia said, in the coming world, they will not ask me, why were you not Moses? They will ask me, why were you not Zusia? Becoming more fully ourselves means finding ways to forgive ourselves for words and actions we regret, for ways we used power inappropriately, and beginning again in love. Because power is not inherently evil. It is simply inherent. Now, there is power in Joey's no, I don't want to brush my teeth, no, I don't want to go to sleep, and on and on. And there's a deeper power in the requests from those students who figured out what they wanted and needed, not just what they didn't want. That yes, when we find it within, aligns us with love beyond belief. The world wants you to know what your needs are, to learn how to ask for those needs to be met. Because from Rosenberg and NVC, again, people whose needs are met are confident, comfortable, curious, optimistic, thankful, joyous, fulfilled, trustful. And people whose needs aren't met are angry, annoyed, discouraged, distressed, uncomfortable, frustrated, impatient, irritated. Which will you choose? The world wants you to know what you need and to see what it needs. So together we can, paraphrasing Dr. King, go and make it happen. Sarah needed justice to be done that day so long ago at camp. So for fairness' sake, she risked her brother's ridicule and the counselor's rejection. She knew her own power then, and I think she retells that story at 76 to remind herself that she was and is powerful beyond her deepest doubts, just like you and me. As Rabbi Hillel said, if I won't be for myself, who will be? If I'm only for myself, who am I? And if not now, when? Know yourself, know your power, use it, and be ready to say yes. Comes from Nancy Pelosi's new book, The Art of Power. There's no safer place in the world to experiment with power with and within than here at All Souls. I speak from experience, and the world needs you and you and you and you to be empowered. All Souls needs you to be fully empowered. My granddaughter needs you to be fully empowered. The flowers, the forests, and the firefighters need us to be fully empowered. The children going to bed hungry in Tulsa tonight need you to be fully empowered. There's so much opportunity to grow more fully empowered right here at All Souls, especially on this day when there's a program fair in Emerson Hall. So I hope you say yes this year. May it be so. Thank you.